everyone, I'm Liz from the Beverly Public Library. Welcome to another episode of STEAM Scribbles, where we explore science, technology, engineering, and math concepts together using just pencils and paper. This week's topic is assembly lines. Assembly lines are a method used to put together a desired output in a quicker, more organized way, especially in a situation where we want to create a lot of the desired output. By output here, we mean a product or a thing that we want to create by the end of the assembly line. So if we wanted to create a Lego set, then by the end of our assembly line, we'll have put together all of the pieces that we need to complete our Lego set. For this week's Scribble, we're going to decide on a product and dive right into the scribbling. A product here could be anything that's man-made and has a lot of pieces. Anything that comes in a package will work pretty well for this. So like a toy train or a box of crayons. Even a bike would work, although that has a lot of pieces, so something smaller might be easier to start with. For me, I'm going to pretend that I own an imaginary bakery and I want to produce a lot of cupcakes. So cupcakes are my output, my desired product for my assembly line. If you've got your product in mind, we're ready to start. So the first thing that's going to go onto our scribbles, of course, is our actual assembly line. And it's a literal line, so you can take whatever color you want. I'm going to use black. And just draw a straight line across your paper, probably towards the bottom so that you have space to draw all of the steps that are going to go along the line. The line actually represents a conveyor belt, which is what's used in a lot of assembly lines. You've probably seen a conveyor belt before at a grocery store or any other store that you've been to. When you go to a checkout lane, you put the things that you're buying on the conveyor belt and it moves those things from one side of the checkout lane down to the cashier. It's that belt that moves the objects down. So assembly lines usually use those to move the pieces of our product from one side all the way down to the end when it's finished. Okay, and speaking of those pieces, we need to think about the pieces that our products are made up of. The pieces are our inputs to create our output, the things that we put in to get out our product. So what is your product made up of? So for example, if you're doing a box of crayons, then you need to have the actual crayon, which is made of melted wax, and the color that goes into the crayons, the wrapper that goes around each crayon, and the box that the crayons go into. For my cupcakes, I need my cake that the cupcakes are made up of. I need the icing that goes on top of the cupcakes, and I need the box to put the cupcakes in for people to take the cupcakes home. Each piece or input to your product is going to represent one step that needs to be done to create your product. So for example, my cupcakes, if I need the actual cupcakes, I need them to be baked. That's the step for the cake. If I need icing, then I need somebody to frost my cupcakes. That's the icing step. I need a box, so I need someone to package the cupcakes. That's the packaging step. And for each of those steps, I'm going to create a station along my line with somebody at the station doing that action. So let's create our first station now that we've thought about the pieces and the steps. So what's the very first thing that you need to create your product? So for me, as I said, it was my cake. Can't frost it or package it without the actual cake there first. And if you're not sure what the first step is, just try out a few different things. We can always make multiple scribbles until we get it right. And you'll figure out the order. So I'm going to take glue and I'm going to make an oven over here. Behind this part of the line. There's the handle for my oven door. That's the window, so we'll be able to see. I draw them in. Might even see on the rack inside a little pan with cupcakes in it. And I guess there should be a display up here that says what temperature things are at. And we'll just color that in. What is your first station? What things do you need to make or put together your first piece? Maybe yours is simpler than this and it doesn't need something big like an oven. Like if you were making an action figure, you might just need a mold to put the plastic shape of your action figure in. If it's an action figure that its hands and legs can move, you might need to screw on to the main body, the arms and legs. It might be as simple as somebody standing there doing that. Or you might have something complicated like me too. Like if you're doing the crayons, maybe you need to melt your wax first. So you would need to show a big furnace with a fire and a pot with the wax in it melting. Okay, but that's our first step, and you can draw a little person next to it. Because there should be a person at each station. I'm gonna give him a little chef hat since he's baking. So that's station number 1. Now we have to think about what comes next. What's the next station we're gonna draw? And I'm gonna show my finished cupcakes coming down the line. Well, they're not the finished end product. They're the finished baked cake part. They still need their frosting. So now for the second station, we need to think about the next thing that needs to be added to your product, the next piece. Do you know what that is? Okay, if you do, then we're ready to just continue scribbling. So down your line, add in as many stations as you need. And you might need to draw smaller if you've got a lot of pieces or steps to add, or you might even need 2 papers to put it all together. That'd be cool. Just take as much space and time as you need, and we'll be right back after we finish putting in all our first stations. Okay, Scribblers, welcome back. How do your assembly lines look so far? Hopefully you have a few stations along your line, one for each step or piece to create your final output or product. So mine has 3 stations. It has the baking station that we did together earlier, the frosting station, and you can see there's some frosted cupcakes going along the line down to my 3rd station, the packaging station. And there's my little red box and somebody putting some cupcakes into a box for customers. And this is a perfectly good finished assembly line, but we can make it even more complicated if we want. Before we do that though, let's think about why an assembly line is so useful. Why would somebody do this rather than just make the product step by step in one spot? Okay, so if we're trying to make one batch of cupcakes, say, since mine's cupcakes, I could do all of those steps by myself. I could bake them, and I could frost them, and I could package them. It would take longer, but I'm making just one batch and I have the time. But if I'm trying to make, let's say, 100 batches of cupcakes to sell to customers in my bakery for the day, then it's going to take me a long time to do that all by myself. So it's easier for sure if I have a few people working on it. But if we have a few people doing all of the steps, then probably those people are all focused on one batch at a time too. So it would go faster if we try to make a lot of batches at once. And the easiest way to do that is if we're organized and we have all of our steps laid out like this. So you can see in my scribble here that I am making 1, 2, 3, 4 batches at the same time. And that's definitely faster this way. On top of which, each person only needs to remember how to do one step, so we're less likely to mess up and need to start over, because it's much easier to remember just how to bake the cupcakes than how to bake them, frost them, and package them right. Okay, so now that we've clarified why an assembly line is a good idea, let's think about if there's any other steps that might go into this that we haven't thought about just yet. So, for example, I am frosting at the frosting station. Where did my icing come from? Did I just have it? We could probably add a step showing how the icing was made, because the icing itself is an end product that's being used to create the next end product. But if I added that step right here, it could get kind of messy because we're trying to stay organized, right? So if I had a station between the baking station and the frosting station where the icing is coming down the same assembly line as the cupcakes, the person at the frosting station won't know whether to expect cupcakes next or frosting next, and it might throw them off. So it's easier for them if their frosting is coming from a separate place. So we could make a little branch like this to another station where the frosting's being made. So for each of your pieces, there's probably another station that you could make where you could think about how each of those pieces are made and pretend that those are your end product. And if we did that for each of these, we might end up with an assembly line that looks like a tree, with our main assembly line being the trunk and with a bunch of different branches off to show how each input was made. But I'm just going to start with my frosting station. So how was my frosting made in the first place? We'll call this the frosting creation station. So I need another table, like the one I have over here, but probably bigger. And then on my table, I need some ingredients. So I might have, let's see, a bag of sugar. Let's see if I can write sugar on there for you. Okay, it's really small, but that says sugar. And we might have a little box of butter. I'm just going to draw on here a stick of butter on the box, and you'll know. And then behind all of that, I can draw another bowl. I'll also make this one green for consistency. And for my frosting to be blue, I probably need some sort of dye in it. So this will be a little bottle of food coloring right here. to get it to the right color. Let me color in my table. And then I need a person over here. Who is stirring all of that together. And down this assembly line, I could draw a bowl of frosting coming down. So we'll make another bowl just to show you. And there we have it. So now we've complicated our assembly lines a little bit. If you want to add more assembly line branches, go for it. I think I'm good for now, which means that I'm done with my assembly line. And if you're done with yours, congratulations, good work. I'd love to see what sort of assembly line you made, what sort of product you decided to make, and how you figured out all of the steps. So if you feel like sharing your scribble on social media, use the hashtag SteamScribbles. And don't forget to tune in next week for another episode of Steam Scribbles. See you next time, Scribblers.